Hello everyone and welcome to this month's episode of Jig Retro. This month's episode is a kind of follow-up to last month's episode where we'll be looking at how to really get into this retro video gaming hobby and possibly even collecting. Many of my friends and followers will ask me about video games that they should try out and play. I've decided to take this a step further by picking a game from each genre as a gateway to lead you further down the rabbit hole. With that said, this isn't a list of the greatest video games of each genre, but I do find these games to be really great and very accessible to gamers of all abilities. As always, if you enjoy this content, then please like, share and subscribe, and feel free to comment down below. This is one genre that I only discovered during my retro video gaming obsession more recently. The name comes from the two most famous examples of the genre, Metroid and Castlevania. And essentially in these types of games you are free to explore an entire map on a 2D plane, with certain areas gated until you've unlocked a special item or ability such as double jump. I had somehow completely bypassed Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night when they were first released, and also completely missed out on the Game Boy Advance classics such as Castlevania Aria of Sorrow and Metroid Zero missions. Nowadays it's one of the most prevalent examples on the indie scene, including games such as Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, Blasphemous and The Mummy Demastered. The game I have chosen here is Metroid Fusion for the Game Boy Advance. I feel that on the whole this game is much more accessible and straightforward than most, while giving you plenty of elements that most definitely open you up to this amazing type of game. Another potentially oversaturated genre in the indie game market would be action platformers. Them ninja style platformers just seem to be springing up everywhere at the moment, with the best examples being The Messenger and Cyber Shadow. Some of my absolute favourites from the genre include the NES Batman game and the classic Atari 2600 game Hero. For this category I have to choose Super Castlevania 4. This game not only has some great whip wielding action, but some fun and tricky platforming and atmosphere in droves. The game is considered one of the easier games in the series, yet plenty tough enough to certainly give a really rewarding and satisfying challenge. The realisation that this game has unlimited continues, where at worst you might have to start the level again, make it very accessible, although I would recommend utilising save states if able to stop some frustrations in difficult parts towards the end of the game. Platformers in general are a great gateway into retro gaming, and potentially can be a good way of getting the wife or maybe some children into your hobby. Anyone who's ever had any interaction with a video game console will have some form of nostalgia for one of these fantastic titles. This genre can include some classic titles such as the Disney video games like Aladdin and Castle of Illusion, Sonic, Mario, and even some slightly more rarer examples such as Donkey Kong, Rystar, Rayman and many more. With this category I've decided to cheat and go for the SNES compilation Mario All-Stars, and the version that includes Super Mario World is even better bang for your buck. Essentially an upgraded 16-bit version of the first three 8-bit Super Mario titles, with the added ability of being able to save. The original Mario games pretty much created the blueprint for all that came after it and are accessible and bona fide classics with a satisfying challenge. Now this may be a bit of a controversial choice, but hear me out. I do really enjoy the likes of Halo and Call of Duty, but I do feel that the complexities of these slightly more modern first-person shooters leave a bigger gap between newcomers and veterans. And essentially this leaves newcomers getting their asses handed to them so regularly. And believe me, this can become no fun quite quickly. The innovator of the genre, Doom, is still very playable, but for me it really has to be GoldenEye. Yes, nowadays the graphics don't hold up particularly well at all, and crikey, that N64 controller seems really janky by modern standards. But get 4 people of a certain age around this game and you will never fail to have a good time. Even the single player mode has lots of nostalgic fun to offer. The shoot 'em up genre as a whole is not particularly newcomer friendly, but there are so many that have been released and can be really fun in short bursts. With that said, if any of these games really grab you, you will find yourself obsessed with the genre, and will find yourself picking up all sorts. These games are all about adrenaline, pattern recognition, and quick reflexes, not for the faint of heart. Ikaruga is considered one of the best bullet hell style shooters of the genre, but for me, if I was you, I would start with R-Type. Don't get me wrong, this game will very much still kick your ass, but I feel that the levels and even the bosses are quite a bit shorter than some others in the genre, giving you at least some hope of learning the enemy patterns. For me, this could be really simple. I would just pick any Street Fighter or Capcom style fighting game and that would be it. But I think in hindsight, those types of games are less accessible and are unlikely to give you a real passion for the genre. For me, as much as I consider Soul Calibur and Virtua Fighter great examples of the genre, they turn into a bit of a button mashing mess. My choice here would be Tekken 3. Believe me, this can still be a great button masher if you're into that kind of thing. In that sense, players will get on really well with Hwoarang and Eddie. But a quick pause and a look at the commands menu and you will be quickly finding how to perform some devastating moves with some more complicated characters. I personally really enjoy playing as King. There are loads of unlockables, including epic movies for completing with each character, loads of unlockable characters, and even completely different modes such as Tekken Ball, which is kind of like volleyball, and Tekken Force, which is a brawler style similar to Streets of Rage.
Chicken. You win.
And that leads neatly into Brawler. Brawler style games haven't had much representation since the glory days of the 16-bit era, but recently there's been somewhat of a resurgence. My favourites of the genre would have to be Streets of Rage 2 and Final Fight, but others that I really like include The Punisher, Alien vs Predator, and even Guardian Heroes for the Sega Saturn. But I have to say, if you're going to try something from this genre right now, then it would have to be Streets of Rage 4. Dotemu have done such a great job with this game, and the fantastic retro unlockables keep you playing over and over, which in turn makes you better and better. Once you have had your fill of the original release, then I would even recommend spending a few extra pounds to get the DLC. And that sort of business is like pure evil to a retro gamer such as myself. This is a must to play in good old 4-player sofa multiplayer with your buds. Crikey, where to start in this genre for me? Absolute epic examples such as Flashback on the Mega Drive, Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, and Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1, Batman Arkham, and the Uncharted series. With that said, my choice here is BioShock. This game rocked my world from the intro to the climax the first time I played it on my Xbox 360. I was in love with the art style and the super creepy horror aspects, not to mention the mind-blowing twist which can't be understated if you haven't had it spoilt for you. Some of the set pieces in this game blew my mind at the time. It doesn't even outstay its welcome with a not too daunting but suitably chunky 12 hours to beat the main story. If you do that, then I'm sure you will find the game to be wonderfully balanced and difficulty doesn't get in the way of enjoying this fantastic game. Absolutely anyone can pick up and play, and you can all have fun as a group from the very start. And in that sense, there's plenty to choose from, including one of my absolute favourites, the Rock Band or Guitar Hero series. Nowadays, there's even some quality indie titles that suit this genre, such as Overcooked. Although I'm sure if you busted this one out of a party, an argument would ensue, your friends would leave, and you would never speak to each other ever again. I'm going pretty old school for this choice, and I'm going with Super Bomberman 2 for the SNES. This is my favourite game from this particular series, although some may prefer others such as Mega Bomberman. Obviously this means that the extra controllers and multi-tap is a must, but this game has a major pick up and play simplicity, all the way up to super skilled, yet somehow it makes it easy to all play together. With that said, if you've missed the opportunity to play Rock Band or Guitar Hero, then you also need to seek out that uber fun experience. RPG is unfortunately a genre that I'm pretty much going to skip over for this episode. I'm personally not particularly a fan, as I just don't have hundreds of hours to plough into a single game. It has to be something really special, such as the brilliant Final Fantasy VII, and if you haven't played that, then I would certainly give that a bash. For people I know who have already played through Final Fantasy VII, then I would recommend taking a look at Zelda: Link to the Past with a guide, or Chrono Trigger, both of which have been on my backlog of games to play for some time now. This is one of my absolutely favourite genres, and with so much variety it's going to be hard to just choose one game to recommend. From more serious stuff like Forza, to more happy-go-lucky games like Micro Machines and Mario Kart, even to arcade titles such as Sega Rally. I'm going to have to cheat here and give you two answers. Outrun Coast to Coast is a fantastic game and a must to try out at least once. It has a fantastic soundtrack, a brilliant drift mechanic that leaves you wanting more. If you're into a quick blast pick up and play solo experience, then this is the game for you, as it is only one player. The other option I would have to give is Burnout Revenge. Crash Mode is a simple pick up and play for anyone. Its multiplayer has a one-player game that also works due to its huge variety of racing modes. Who wouldn't love those slow-mo, high-speed, and I mean high-speed crashes? Sports games were such an important part of my gaming history, as many of the titles had 2 or 4 player sofa multiplayer. Some of my mentions would definitely go to NBA Jam, Sensible Soccer, NHL 94, ISS 98 and Virtua Tennis. But for me, I would probably choose NFL Blitz 2000. In the same vein as NBA Jam, this is an amazingly fun arcade style sports game. that doesn't take itself too seriously. This game is about as simple as any American football style game is gonna get, but the bone crunching tackles are so much fun. Admittedly, this game is possibly not quite as accessible as NBA Jam, but honestly I just wanted to shine a bit of light on this gem of a sports title.
Took him out big time. Oh. Ball at the 30. To Mathis. Oh, he just ate him for lunch.
Second down.
Lobs it. Barely gets it.
An honourable mention in this category, in a more extreme sports side of things, would be Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. The addition of manuals in this iteration really ups the combo ante and is always fun in multiplayer as well as single player. To be honest, I have a bit of a dislike for all online specific video games. I hated what it did for good old sofa multiplayer for a while back there. I also dislike how many of the first person shooter style online games are pretty much inaccessible to newcomers. My personal opinion on these games is unfortunately they take an age to load into a map, a good while to find anyone in these sprawling epic landscapes, and when you do, about 3 milliseconds to get slaughtered. So for this category then, it's Rocket League by a mile for me. A fantastic car football game where you hit the ball around using your car and some jumping and spinning physics. Brilliant, simple, easy to play and tough to master. Puzzle, another one that's really easy for me. Play Tetris. My favourite is the Game Boy one, but any iteration is absolutely great. Time just vanishes when you start a game of Tetris. Almost a perfect game. Other honourable mentions would probably be things like Puyo Puyo, Bust a Move, Dr. Mario, but really, if you're honest, it's Tetris. Tetris is the one. I remember personally having to literally prise my Game Boy from my mum's hand at times when she was lost in the Tetris realm back in the day. This is a tough one, as pretty much every modern AAA title nowadays is an open world game in some way, shape or form. We have been spoiled with the whole GTA series, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Marvel Spider-Man and Red Dead Redemption. But for me, you guys have to play GTA 5. Admittedly, it starts a little bit slow, but before too long I guarantee you will struggle to put this down. And talk about an absolute huge sandbox map. Even that can't distract you from this fantastic story with such memorable characters for long though. My opinion is that nowadays the mechanics of a classic 3D platformer feel pretty dated on the whole nowadays. But some positive examples would include Crash Bandicoot, Ratchet and Clank and Banjo-Kazooie. But I think that there is one 3D platformer that just gets it all right and proves that Nintendo still has stuff up its sleeve even to this day. Mario Odyssey is what you want to be playing in this genre, and in some ways may lead you to explore at least Mario's other 3D adventures. Much like RPGs, strategy video games are just not something that I've sunk my teeth into as of yet. I'm sure that people will struggle to believe that I've missed out on some classic games such as Shining Force or Final Fantasy Tactics. But there is one game in this genre that grabbed a hold of me for a little while back in the day, and that is what I recommend to you now, Advance Wars. A genre perfectly suited to handheld, this game is perfectly balanced, starting very simple and allowing time for you to progress to more complicated battles. This is a fantastic and straightforward way into the genre and a great and addictive game to boot. I think for now that's plenty for you to get stuck into, and I hope that discovering these games opens you up to become quite the collector yourself. I've tried as much as possible to cover the whole history of gaming with a little bit of something from most consoles. Definitely give these video games a go, especially if you've never played them before. As always, much love, please look after yourselves and each other and get your geek on with Jig Retro.